Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. Okay, so the first one is a screenshot, and no, you're a photographer. Yes?
Yes, exactly. Okay. I just screenshotted them because I didn't have the actual files.
Exactly.
Handy. Yeah.
So the photograph is a fantastic sunset of Toronto skyline. Represent. You can see the Seaman Tower. How recent is this?
2016, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because the skyline is different.
Yeah, you can't see many cranes there, but there's probably a lot more right now.
So it's essentially like the left southern third of the skyline, photographed from Lake Superior.
No, photographed from
Lake Ontario.
From Lake Ontario, and there's a pier that goes out around, kind of like a spit, and I skateboarded out there with my friend Brendan one night, who was also getting into photography at the time, and we were just kind of roaming the city and looking for cool opportunities and cool compositions and stuff like that. And
the sunset is beautiful. What kind of camera were you using? Was it a cell phone or what?
No, I think I shot that probably on like a Canon T3i.
Okay. I'm making a photograph now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, like it was still an entry level DSLR at the time, but it was one of my first cameras. I think when I started shooting, when I took it off of just using a GoPro or a phone, and really was like, I want to start shooting. And I chose that photo because I think like looking back on it, I didn't know it at the time, but I think that's kind of where it all began for me. It was just like having fun, exploring, and shooting a city that I love.
Nice. What's great is the light is really good. So basically, for listeners, it's 2/3 of the bottom third is just the water, and there's some chops, so it's quite there's a bit of waves on there. It reflects the sky, and this is twilight-ish, so it's this beautiful deep blues. Then you have the skyline, which is the buildings and stuff. Very iconic image of, it could only be Toronto, really.
Right.
And then you've got a few clouds capturing the sunlight, and there's a bit of like red, and it's like a really nice sunset shot. Now, as a photographer today, so it is interesting that's the first kind of moment where you said, okay, I'm making a photograph. I think it was Ansel Adams who said, some people, what they do is they take photographs. They kind of go and take. Whereas when you make a photograph, it's a lot more deliberate. Right? And so, why don't you talk about photography? I didn't come up with it. Old Daddy Adams did.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that was just at a funny time in my life. That photo is very significant because I was, how old would I have been at the time? Maybe 23, 24 years old. I studied music in university, went on to studying education, and became a teacher, and played a lot around Toronto as a musician. And it almost feels like a totally different life now.
What instruments?
I played bass, was my main instrument. Yeah,
I believe it.
Studied jazz.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe it.
And at that time, I had just, I think it was around that time, I just quit my teaching job and living in Toronto at the time, just kind of figuring out what I was going to do. And photography was something that just felt like really organic and natural to me. And it wasn't...
so you're a skater, you're a teacher of what age?
So I taught for 1 year at a private school in Mississauga.
Okay.
2015, 16.
How do you spell Mississauga?
It's a trick question, isn't it? Mississauga.
Did it. Nailed it. You're almost blushing. I'm such a dick.
Put me on the spot.
No.
Snapping back with the facts.
It's awesome.
Spelling was my best subject when I was in school. So.
This is great. Okay, so part of the podcast spirit is this idea that every second is a gift, right? Like every second something amazing can happen. Like getting on the plane and all of a sudden, what? You know, it's that.
Hey, you walk by me and I was like, what are the chances of this?
Exactly.
Man? The universe is so funny.
It's so great. But so, for example, you go out with your friends. How many friends?
Like at this time when we were doing the photography, That night was just with one friend, another one of my friends who's also just getting into photography.
He brought his camera as well?
Yeah,
you guys
exactly.
said, we're going to make photos.
Exactly.
So what is your development in terms of your aesthetics?
Since that photo?
Or how about this? Better question. The skater punk who made that photograph had one brain, and the person I'm talking to now has a more matured brain from that kid.
Yeah.
So what do you see in terms of that evolution? Oh wait, let's just let the lady talk.
She's gonna answer for me. Honestly, this photo to me screams like innocence. Like I just didn't know what I was doing at the time. There's so much like ignorance and naivety, and I didn't know the next 5-6 years of my life would be shaped by traveling around the world with a camera. This to me was just us like messing around, man. Like you said, we're just skating and having fun, right? I think the innocence of that photo, I look at it and I feel home for one, because I grew up north of Toronto and I spent a lot of time in the city, and I think it's a great place. But more so, it's just I didn't know everything that was going to happen after that. Taking that photo would have become such a big part of my identity, right?
Yeah. So when you had made that, so you were teaching at the time, or no?
I can't remember if this is like the year before I started teaching or maybe the year after. So it's kind of all around the same time. I say circa 2015 kind of thing. Yeah, I was just finding myself, right? I was in between music and teaching and not knowing it yet, but starting a career of filmmaking and photography, right?
Okay. So my caffeine jacked brain at the moment is going to skip forward and back a lot.
Yes.
So can you think of a photo that you made? This is an important photo because it kind of started something.
Yeah.
So maybe one of the photos you sent is like going to answer this question, but what was the most surprising result from a photograph in your life?
It's an interesting question.
That surprised you?
The most surprising result from a photograph.
Or something, like you made a photo and maybe at the time you thought this is a big deal, but then it actually, what evolved from it was, wow, that photo really resonated, created some kind of change.
Right, yeah.
If it's not coming out now, it's going to come out in a bit.
Yeah,
it's going to sit in your brain.
It's a tough one. I think there's probably a lot of photos where you don't really know at the time. Like even it's maybe more metaphoric for like just going out and shooting. But a lot of times on the shoot, I always think I know like the best photo or the photo that I'm going to like the most. And then you get home and you put them up in your edit and capture one or Lightroom, and then you actually see the photo that you like originally like kind of scoffed off as like not a good photo, and you have just a different perspective, I guess, and you look at it and you're like, oh, that's actually
a much stronger
photo, right? Yeah, and it's kind of, it goes in tandem with like not forcing anything. Where if you go out with the idea of this photo, for example, right, to go back to that, if we went out that night and I was like, I need this skyline shot with like CN Tower on the lower third, and that was my hero shot, I don't think it would have been as special because it was so calculated. You kind of have tunnel vision, but like we just went out with, I talked about this in the recent film I made, but if your intention first is always to meet people or enjoy the moment and have a good experience, and the photography is secondary, I think you're already kind of successful. But if you go out with, I need this shot, then you kind of put limits, I think, on yourself, right?
No, I'm eating this up. Okay, so you dropped something. I'm gonna pick it up. The most recent film you made. Are we gonna talk about it in a bit?
No, let's talk about it now. I looked at you because it pumps me up. I'm super excited about it. And it's something that would be related to some of the other photographs. But I recently had the opportunity to do a project with Sullivan, the global running company, well known as a ski brand in Europe, but they do a lot of trail running. And for this project, it's a project across Canada featuring photographers called The Art of Running. And
they sent you around Canada?
They didn't send me around. They're featuring photographers around Canada that all focus on shooting running and sports.
Nice.
And for this project, I wanted to do something different. Instead of working with like a hotshot runner.
She's so rude. We're trying to have a conversation here.
So they gave us the opportunity to choose an athlete to feature on this project. And my mom, Sharon, just turned 70 this year, and she has picked up running and trail running. She runs in Sullivan's shoes. It was like the perfect sort of synthesis of a lot of things. And we flew her out to British Columbia, and we went up north in the Alpine, and I got to do a photo shoot capturing her running in the Alpine for the first time in her life, and at 70 years old.
What a treat, man.
Yeah.
I am happy for her. I'm happy for you. What a nice thing to do.
Like such a special project. Like, I light up when I think about it. It's been the most like purpose-driven project I think I've ever been a part of, just to work with my mom. Yeah, just so many things like aligning of, I talk about it in the film, but I moved out here from Ontario basically to focus more on being outside and shooting the outdoors, shooting running, and to be able to combine that with someone like my mom who has influenced me. She's a photographer as well. She's a runner as well. So she's had such a big influence on my life. So to be able to bring her out and show her what I do,
amazing,
and combine that with shooting her is it's just such a fun project.
Dude,
so
you're so sweet.
And that should be released in the spring.
So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.